This is Anime Ricochet. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Anime Ricochet, the premier anime podcast of Nerd Blaze.
Hoot,
My
hoot.
name is Jeff, and I am here with my personal trainer. His name is Kobe.
That is me. Have you been doing your push-ups and sit-ups and crunches and Flormagorps?
Yeah, I've been doing especially well in the Flormagorps. I think my forearm needs a little bit of work, though, but...
That's fair. That's good. Hi, everyone. I am Kobe.
Yeah, this is a podcast where we talk about sports anime, even though Kobe and I don't know anything about sports in general.
Nothing at all. I don't even think I can spell the word sport. Can you? I think there's a Q in there somewhere.
There's a Q followed by a U, as is the standard English convention.
Right, naturally. You can tell we don't play sports.
Yeah.
Language.
I did play sports recently. I played a few weeks ago, like a month ago or something at this point. I played a little bit of volleyball. That was fun.
Ooh, okay.
And then I played bocce ball over the weekend, which is, I don't think that's actually a sport. It's like an old person sport or something.
Yeah, I don't think that's an actual thing. You don't have to lie.
You're right. I just made that shit up.
Yeah. We're more
bocce ball. What the fuck
We're more book smart people, aren't we?
I don't read books either. I'm pretty dumb.
Ah, that's fair. Okay.
Okay, so let's get into the anime of the hour. We are going to be talking about Chihayafuru today. And Chihayafuru is a very unique anime because the sport it deals with is very unique. So yeah, let's just get right into it. Chihayafuru, it's based off of an anime, based off a manga series of the same name, written by Yuki Setsugu. The first issue was released on May 13th, 2008, and it's actually still running today. The anime itself is directed by Morio Asaka, and she's known for, or I think it's a dude actually.
Yeah,
I can't tell between Japanese male and female names. Known for Card Captor Sakura, Galaxy Angel, Gunslinger Girl, and I don't know any.
Final Fantasy VII.
With Advent Children.
She directed Morio Asaka directed Final Fantasy VII, the video game.
What?
Yeah,
that's crazy. Okay, that's cool.
Some fun fact for you.
Yeah. Yeah, so I know that he did the storyboards for Black Lagoon and My Love Story. I've seen a little bit of Black Lagoon, and I saw the first episode of My Love Story. I think My Love Story's got a pretty good reception. It's like a slice of life romantic comedy anime.
Oh, do you like it?
Yeah, the first episode I saw was pretty funny. I like the premise, the characters seem cool and all that. But anyways, yeah, so the studio that Chihayafuru was backed by was Studio Madhouse, which is a big anime studio. They're known for all kinds of stuff: One Punch Man, Death Note, Black Lagoon, Trigun, Ninja Scroll, Perfect Blue, and so much more. I'm sure you've heard at least one anime of that list.
They are quite extensive. I heard one of them that I've kind of looked into that I want to see is called Wolf Children, that I've heard is a pretty good one. I just haven't. I think it's an anime film. Yeah, Wolf Children. It's supposed to be really good, really sad. Okay. And that is Studio Madhouse.
Yeah, they're really good. Chihayafuru, we were talking about the first season, which has 25 episodes. Its run went from October 4th, 2011, and ended on March 27th, 2012. So,
can we just talk? That is very. But there's two seasons of the show, Chihayafuru. Both of them are 25 episodes each, which I think is just an odd thing for an anime to have just two 25 episode seasons. I personally haven't seen another anime that is structured in that style.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. There's another sports anime, though, called Hajime no Ippo. I think I mentioned it to you. It's like a boxing anime. And, I guess its first season is, 70 or so episodes. And then after that, season 2 and season 3, I think, are each 25 episodes long. So I don't know if it's the whole industry is, moving towards that format. Because,
when you hear the sport that Chihayafuru is, based on, to me, when I first went into it, I was like, how could there possibly be 50 episodes of a show devoted to a game called Karuta. Karuta.
Karuta? I don't know how to pronounce it. Let's just say whatever we want.
The sport is Karuta. It's a card-based memorization game, and if that doesn't sound sexy to you, then you're listening to the wrong podcast.
Yeah. It's a very niche sport, first of all. It's in Japan, competitive Karuta, there are 10 to 20,000 competitive Karuta players. And the population of Japan is 127 million. So that means only about 1% of the population plays competitive Karuta. And of the world, it's 0.0002% around that. So,
which is crazy.
Very
and
niche.
That's what's based.
Niche.
And that's on the show, they kind of mention that fact that if you become the best in Japan, you will basically become best in the world because nobody else plays this sport. So
yeah, and that's a fact. So basically a quick overview of the sport. It's a competitive 1-versus-1 game. There's basically 50 cards in front of the players, and each card has a poem on them. It has the second verse of a poem. And then the reader will draw a card from its own pool, of which there's a total of 100 poems. We'll draw a card and read the first verse of one of the poems. And then it's up to either player to detect what second verse of the poem matches to that poem that's being read. And then the first person that touches the card basically either gets to remove the card from their field or place one of their cards onto their opponent's side of the field. And the point of the game is to get rid of all the cards on your side of the field. And so that's kind of a quick overview.
It's a quick overview, and that's amazing to me because really on the base level of this game, you could easily just have it. The reader says a card, and then you have to find the card that the reader just read. I mean, that's hard in itself. You have to beat someone to do that. Basically memorization. But Karuta, it just takes that one step more because you not only have to listen to what the reader is saying, you have to know the next verse of it. So it's like you really have to memorize all 100 poems that are associated with this game to know which ones are going to be, because there's no hints, there's no easy way to guess. You just need to know, and that's incredible. It's an incredible mind sport.
Yeah, and if you're thinking that this just seems more kind of like a card game, well, I mean, it's a sports anime though. I think the way it's directed and the way it's shown, it's a sport, and it is a sport really. But I think the funniest thing is I read the Wikipedia entry on it, and it says I think it describes it pretty well. So it says here, today competitive Karuta is played by a wide range of people in Japan. Although the game itself is simple, playing at a competitive level requires a high level of skills such as agility and memory. Therefore, it is recognized as a kind of sport in Japan.
Just only partly? It's kind of a sport. You're kind of recognized.
Yeah, it's hilarious because I mean, it's very niche and I think of it as, well, I think it's considered a sport because, yeah, I think the whole agility component of it, and there is a physicality to it, there's a stamina component to it as well. Cause
that's so important.
Because matches can take hours and tournaments take whole days. So you need to get some good rest. Make sure
and you're playing round after round after round.
And you play in hot, steamy rooms.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's grueling.
The way the anime makes it play, it does seem like a very competitive sport. It's a it's a difficult sport. On the surface, it looks really easy and really kind of dumb in the sense, and that's what a lot of the outside characters of this anime think of Karuta. They don't take it seriously, but then once you're in the Karuta world, it's you understand why it's such a difficult sport to really master, because it does take the agility, the stamina, and the memorization skills.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting sport, and that's part of what makes this anime pretty interesting. It's quite a novelty. You get to learn about the sport as the anime goes on. And I guess just right off the bat, I think the one thing I like about this anime is it layers its it introduces the game in a gradual way. It doesn't dump the rules on you all at once. You learn about the rules, you learn about the strategies, you learn about the history, kind of like episode for episode. They just kind of drop little things, little morsels for you to chomp on as you think about the sport. And that's what I really like about it. And you only need to know a little bit in the beginning, but then you learn about it as the anime goes on, which is really cool.
Absolutely agree. You just need to know the bare basics. Because again, if they dumped everything on us that the rules gradually, put forth in these 25 episodes, then it's just, we're reviewing the first season, by the way, everybody. And the information that they put forth in the first 25 episodes, I would have been completely lost. I was still a little unclear on the rules about a lot of the time. I didn't understand about the faults and when you have to send cards to your opponent and what that truly means. I didn't really understand that till after the first season was over. Now I have a clear grasp of it, but even not knowing the rules of it, what I liked about this anime is that you can boil it down to the matches are still fun to watch and they're easy to follow even if you don't truly understand every single rule. It still makes it pretty exciting, and that's why that's one of the elements that I liked about this anime.
Definitely. And what is a sports anime without its characters, though? So let's talk about the characters. Let's start out with the main character, the titular protagonist of the story, is Chihaya. And if you don't know, so Chihayafuru is, I think it's the first words of like her favorite poem, and it just so happens that her name is Chihaya, so she's very associated with like that one card in the game. Anyway, so Chihaya, she's very earnest, she's kind, she's encouraging, and she's very determined. And oh, by the way, so we're kind of changing the format of our podcast. We're going to be kind of giving a more of an analysis bend towards the anime. So we're not going to be going in depth through each episode, kind of like, but there might be minor spoilers. Anyways, yeah, just want to get that out of the way. So
yeah, because our last anime, we completely spoiled Yuri on Ice.
Yeah. We're still figuring things out.
We're still figuring it out.
So basically, at the beginning of the anime, we learned about the childhoods of the three main characters. And Chihaya, we learn, is she at first was dedicated to helping her sister become a famous model. But after meeting Arata, one of the other main characters, when she learned about Karata, she suddenly wants to become like the queen of Karata, which is the best female player of Japan, aka the best female player in the world.
Yep.
So that's this anime is basically about her moving towards that goal.
And that is her driving force, because she starts off as a character who has no dream for herself. And she always lives for other people and stuff. And then when she's a young child and she suddenly learns that she could want something for herself, she latches onto that dream because I think it's an underlying current of this anime itself. It's like you need to have a dream and that you want to strive for. And don't let anybody take your dream from you. And always work hard to accomplish your dream. So good on you, sports anime, for encouraging dream accomplishment.
Right. So let's get into the analysis bits of this. I don't like Chihaya as a protagonist. I think she's really disappointing, to be honest. I think so the first 3 episodes deal with her as a child, and I think all three of the main characters, except for one of them actually, is way more interesting as a child than they are when we come back to the present where they're all in high school. And the reason for this is because they do a great job of laying the foundation of the show and its dynamic and the relationships between the 3 main characters, and then after that, they just kind of drop the ball on it consistently. Like I think I'm gonna give that's like my main baseline criticism is that there's a strong foundation, and they don't follow up on it. So for example, for Chihaya, so in the beginning we kind of see her. She's so for one, she's very determined, right? There's a scene where kind of like she'll push one of her friends out of the way if they're doing bad, and kind of like take their place because she doesn't, she's really kind and she's ready to win, and she wants to be there for her friend. But that determined attribute doesn't hold when she's an adult for some reason, or not an adult, but a teenager. So, because like a lot of her matches, she always ends up like kind of like giving up on herself in the first half of the match or so. There's one match where she just straight up passes out, and it's never really touched on why. I guess she just got super nervous. So she's supposed to be determined, and yet she falters at like the hints of defeat. And then another characteristic that I really liked from her was that she's really encouraging. So in the anime, you'd think, and she ends up being the team captain when you form the Karata team. And so she's really encouraging. However, when they're actually playing like the Karata matches, she's not the one encouraging the team members. When the team members begin to falter, she's actually one of the team members that are kind of, getting nervous, losing her edge. And it's actually another character's job to like pick up their slack. And we'll talk about this other character in a bit, because I think I know why they gave that characteristic to him instead of Chihaya. So yeah, basically main criticism is that Chihaya has a great setup, but for some reason they never capitalize on those core character traits after the introduction. I don't know. What do you think, Kobe?
See, the way I view that is because your criticism about them not following up with her, with her attributes that they had early on. To me, that wasn't what her character needed to go through. That wasn't her character arc in the series. Isn't that she needs to keep up her determinedness and her earnestness. It's that she needs to learn that there's a world outside of just being singularly obsessed with Karuta, because she loves Karuta more than anything on this world. If you ask her what she wants to do, she's going to say, let's play Karuta. So she is singularly driven, And I feel like the first season of the show specifically is that her learning a different element from each of the different characters to learn more about the game that she loves so dearly. So that's why she's not supposed to take on the role of someone who's like encouraging her teammates or so. It's like, or being determined to win. She's supposed to be singularly focused about it, and she's supposed to learn that there's more to Karuta than just what just her initial passion is supposed to be. So that's why I think her arc specifically is nice, along with the other characters that we'll get into probably shortly. But just overall, I liked Chihara as a protagonist itself because she is someone who doesn't have to try to inspire people, like through words and stuff. It's like through her actions and through her love of the game is what makes her so inspiring. It's not that she needs to encourage everyone to like, okay, we can win this, guys. Let's do this one roll at a time, one card at a time. She's a character who her other teammates look at and just be like, yes, we can do this because we see her passion for the game. That's why I personally like Chihara as a protagonist.
See, I would say that she doesn't even have an arc because, okay, well, so you think that her arc is about learning about the other world outside of Karuta?
Not the other world outside of Karuta, learning the other elements of Karuta. Okay. Because right now, at first, she's a good player, but all she really has is her game sense, and all she really has is her speed. But what she does not have is stuff that the other characters have. She doesn't have Taichi's memorization skills. She doesn't have One's actual understanding of the poems itself. She doesn't have Destemuto's... I call him Destemuto. His real name's Kamano, but everyone just calls him Destemuto because he carries a desk everywhere. She doesn't have his really like analytical style when it comes to the game. I will give it to that Porky, the other character, to me is the least developed character because I don't really understand what he's all about. But I feel like every other character has those singular traits that Chihara has to learn from. And she has to absorb, just like all those other people have to learn the passion for Karuta that Ayasa has from it. So it's all team that they're growing together and learning from one another, each one of their special skills.
So Chihaya is singularly focused on the game, yes. But I don't think that she necessarily develops as a character. I would say she develops her skill set, but I think that her journey through developing her skills as Karuta is not inherently linked to like who she is as a person. And I think this is best displayed because the opening and closing shots of the anime are pretty much exactly the same. So in the beginning, she's everyone's commenting on her beauty, and then she's like putting up these Karuta signs, and then the same exact thing happens at the last scene of the last episode of the series, which I think is very indicative that like pretty much everything is exactly the same. The only thing that's different from that scene is like her relationship with like a minor character is a bit more positive. And that's another thing too, is they have this is another, so like I said, they dropped the ball. And here's another part where I think they dropped the ball on. In the very beginning of the series, they have this really compelling conflict with Chihaya and her family. Because what she's known for is, Chihaya's known for being beautiful, and she's known for being the sister of a famous model. Her sister is, of course, also beautiful. So that's kind of like, I thought that was the theme that they were going to go with this story, was that she was going to have to live with being overshadowed by her sister constantly, and she's going to have to like strive to become better, to become her own person. But that conflict is instantly resolved in an episode, just like in one of the first 5 or 6 episodes or so. And it's never touched again. Like they never talk about like, well, what's her relationship like with her sister? They never talk about what's it like being beautiful, like other than, oh, I'm beautiful. Okay, so here's the thing. They call her like beauty in vain or something. So yeah. She's a beautiful, physically beautiful person, but she's like really quirky or something. She's like she ruins it as soon as she talks or does anything,
which is such a Japanese anime type of thing that a beautiful girl has to be proper.
Exactly.
That is that element of it. I'll give that.
Right. So, but that's the thing, is like beyond that, that's kind of like just the quirk element. I feel like it would have been so much more compelling if they explored her relationship with her sister. If they talked about like, I don't know, her beauty, I guess, like if there was some kind of like, but what was it like? Like what was it like being treated a certain way versus other people being treated a certain way? Which I actually think there's another character in the anime, one of the antagonists that deals with that issue. But I guess we won't talk about her because she's way down the line. And I think it also would have been more compelling if her development as a character actually like happened. Like I said, I don't think her as a person really evolved by the end of the anime. Her skills evolved, yes, but her as a person did not evolve, and I don't find that compelling compared to another character, which we'll talk about later.
That's true. Okay, I'll give that. It's because you keep saying it's like the end of the anime itself, but really it's the end of the season of the anime. And I'm coming at it at a place after I finished the first season. I'm about 17 episodes into the second season.
Whoa!
Yeah, because I
really like this anime.
I do. I really do, because it's fun. Because what the second season does is build off the foundation that the first season was setting. It's an overall element of the first season is loss. It's like they don't do well as a team as you would expect them to. In moments where you think a win is going to be secured, they don't win. Something happens where they're not where they need to be yet. And what that really is building this concrete floor for them to build off of, which I guess coming at it from someone who's seen at least 17 episodes of the new season of the second season, it's a lot of the elements from which you've talked about, they do touch upon more. I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm not saying that they completely fix the family storyline or they completely address it. And maybe them bringing it in the second season and not the first one is too late, which I agree. More family stuff from Chihara would have been good earlier on. But I'm saying they do take steps to address those issues that you've brought up.
So, I mean, in that case, then, I mean, is 25 episodes too long for a first season? Because I feel like they could have really made a really tighter, satisfying narrative, even if it's just a single season storyline. If they had shortened it, you know what I mean? Like, because I feel like 25 episodes.
I completely agree. I think the first season should have been, it's 25 episodes. I think it would have been like a damn fine anime if it was 20 episodes even, or if it was. Yeah,
I'd go lower. I mean, so here's me, like personally as a quote unquote critic, I really like tight, short animes where everything is very neat and woven and every scene is there for like a purpose. So I love anime seasons and shows where it's like in the 10 to 15 episode range. But I mean, 20 episodes, shave off. The more they shave off, the better. Yeah, 20 episodes would have been better.
But that's tough to distinguish when you have a show that you don't know, with like just a normal series itself. Usually some anime, an earlier show review like Ping Pong, like they knew the start and the end of the story. What they do a lot with animes is just like they make them while the manga is still going on, so they don't really know the ending of the story. So they're making a show that you don't have to know the beginning and the end of right away. It's just a show that you want to enjoy, and while you're watching it, because that you don't mind being stretched out, that you don't mind revisiting just, I guess, for these characters and keep coming back.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that. It's just I feel like personally it didn't entice me to watch the second season with what they gave me in the first season. And the last thing I want to say about Chihaya's character is that there's kind of like sort of an alarming lack of consequences for Chihaya, because she does some like kind of questionable things, and I guess they're kind of like kind of funny things, but then I feel like it does a disservice to the character. Like, for example, when she's recruiting her team, she uses brute physical force on two of the players, and it works on them. And I just feel like so she literally drags a kid out of the classroom while the kid is dragging their desk. And in another case, she tackles a dude to the ground. And I'm fine with that. But here's the thing. That brutality, that kind of like direct physical aggression that she displays is never brought up again. Like when they try to recruit more members later on in the show, how come she didn't do her physical thing? Why didn't she tackle people to the ground then? Or like, why isn't there another scene later on in the anime where maybe she's like, I don't know, tackling everyone to the ground when they win? Like, I just feel like I feel like when they don't do characters consistently, like when they don't give them traits and they don't follow up on them consistently, it makes it to where those traits were sort of a contrivance or like a convenience in the moment. Like it was convenient for Chihaya to literally drag a character into existence into the show
with his desk.
Exactly. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, and I get you.
Yeah, and another thing is she calls two of the characters, like you said, Desk Tomu, and then another character is she calls it Porky. And Desk Tomu is kind of like, okay, but Porky, come on, that's like fucked up. And she calls him that forever, basically, until some episode in the season. But even after that episode, I feel like she just goes right back to calling them those names. Mm-hmm. So yeah, she's. I just feel like there's no consequences for her because she's like a pretty girl, and there's another thing is like when her grades are slipping, and I feel like that would have been a really interesting conflict. Is like, oh man, because they explored this a little bit, and I wish they just went a little bit deeper because basically, so she is singularly focused on becoming the queen in Karuta, but of course she's not focusing on her studies as much, and that's having a negative impact on her grades. And I feel like it would have been great if they explored it just a little bit further. If they would have said if Chihaya made like a deliberate choice, like, okay, you know what, school's not important, Karata's important, but what they end up doing instead is they bring in the nerdy member of the team to help her as a tutor, and then later on, she just passes everything.
See, when you say it's like you wish that they would have suffered the consequences, like she's making the choice, I feel like they do make that choice through Destemu, and. Yeah, just call him Desk. I'm just going to call him Desk from now on. I want to be like, there's a character in the show called Dr. Haruda who doesn't seem to know any characters' names. So he just calls them like weird nicknames like eyebrows, pretty girl. So I'm going to
and some of those names don't even make sense. He calls one of them eyebrows, but his eyebrows aren't even like that thick. It's like
they made that decision through Desk about how there's a moment in the first season where you realize his grades have slipped a little bit from it, and Chihara is thinking it's a big deal that Desk is going to quit because of it, that she's really worried that he's going to be really upset with it. But then Desk says, no, it does not matter to me. Grades don't matter as much anymore because he's found something he's more passionate about pursuing. So
I think that's another kind of another opportunity that they could have explored on, if not through Chihaya, then through the Desk guy, because Desk Tomu, obviously, he's a guy that was really into his academics, and I just don't believe that he loves this sport and is dedicated to it as much as Chihaya or Taichi are. And these are people that have been playing it for years. So I just feel like that kind of rapid shift in his priorities is just a convenient thing for the plot. And I wish it wouldn't have been convenient if they just explored it a little bit more. If they just touched on it a little bit more. Because it wasn't developed. It was just like a switch. One moment Destone was all about grades, and then boom, as soon as he's in the team, he's all about Karuta. And I think it's a shame. I think they could have explored that a little more.
Yes, I agree with you. I think they could have explored it a little more. But my thing about that is just because his approach to Karuta is different. It wasn't like a switch to it's a switch from grades to boom, passionate about Karuta like Chihara is. It's more studying the analytics of the game itself, like actually doing something for the team that's beneficial and different, which comes to studying and analyzing other teams and other players and card placement and strategies and past matches before that. So I think he's found an outlet that allows him to use his smart and his skills for it, but in a way that's not just solely focused on grades.
I mean, yeah, if that is what they were going for, I think they should have hit on it more. I think that's... Oh, sorry, I hit my keyboard. Mm-hmm. I think that's, like I said, I'm going to be saying this over and over again, missed opportunities or things weren't developed enough, and I understand the manga is still going even till today, and so that means it's been going for years. And so this is going to be like a multi-season anime, but if this is how they're going to treat the characters in its opening season, then I'm just not going to be as interested to watch the rest of it. So, anyways, let's go on to the next character. So we have Taichi. Now, Taichi is Chihaya's best friend. They've been friends since childhood, and he is the guy that is exceptionally talented at pretty much everything he does. But what really drives them is his love and affection for Chihaya, and he is without question, the most uninteresting character in the show, and we don't have to talk about him. Let's move on to the next person.
Oh, I call BS on that. I was saying to him, I think Taichi is one of the best individual characters in an anime that I've seen in quite some time.
Oh, come on.
I am so...
Oh, come on.
I love Taichi.
He's so not... Oh, my God. Okay, you go first.
All right, because you say... you were saying like he's exceptional at everything, but at everything that he ever excels at. Yes, he is, except for one thing. Karuta. He is the only thing that he can't just automatically ace more than anything is the sport that this show is based upon. He is a character that can do anything he wants in his life, but he becomes passionate about a sport that he just can't win at. And that's fascinating to me, that no matter how good he is, like no matter what he does, he can't overcome his either bad luck, his the skill of his opponents, his own personal bias to become into the top tier that he is in everything else. He is a character that just knows that he's struggling. He knows that Chihara, even though he is in love with Chihara so much, he knows for certain that she will never love him back, but he can't help his feelings for her anyway. So he's not only playing a game that he knows he can't be the best at, because when there's another character, Aruta, floating around, who we'll get to next, so he not only knows that there's a character that will always be better than him, but he's around a girl who he loves more than anything, who will not love him back. And just that drive for Taichi makes him, to me, a very fascinating character.
Okay, I think this is... The concept of Taichi is interesting, but the implementation of him, I think, is very lacking. And I think it's overshadowed by this undercurrent of one, his motivation for playing Karuta, and two, his lack of personality. So let's go first with his lack of personality. Again, I'm going to say this character is one of the characters that was way more interesting as a kid, because they explored him more. I think there was way more interesting conflicts with him as a kid than he was when he was a high schooler. So for example, when he was a kid, he was kind of a cocky kid. He was like really smart and like arrogant and stuff. And but there was a reason behind it. And the reason was that like his mom was always pressuring him to be really, really good and to, be the best at everything essentially. And also he's afraid of like his peers and what he's going to think of him. He's afraid of what Chihaya is going to think of him. Mm-hmm. And this all drives him to do kind of a really shitty thing, which we're not going to get into, but basically he does something to get an upper hand on one of the other characters in a game of Karuta because he knows that he can't beat them. So he basically cheats essentially. And then at the end of the third episode or so, I think he resolves that conflict. He apologizes for it. He comes clean with it. And I just think those first 3 episodes of Taichi were, if he was just that character for the rest of the show, if we saw more of his like cockiness and arrogance and all that, and I think he would have been such a great foil to Chihaya. I mean, because right now when I think of Taichi, I think of generic, good-looking, pretty boy love interest. But he could have been the dude spouting off witty things. He could have been like the guy joking around. He could have been like the cocky, arrogant dude he was when he was a kid, because that was way more interesting than what we got, which is basically kind of like a flat, sort of like level-headed dude. And we already have a level-headed guy, which is the next character we're going to talk about. So he could have been kind of more, I guess not a foil to Chihaya, but a foil to the other male character of the series, which is Aruta. So, and then the other thing is his motivation for playing Karuta. Okay, so yes, there are moments where we see his determination and his love for it, but I would argue that he really only is playing Karuta for Chihaya because he loves Chihaya. I don't think he's necessarily playing it because he's like compelled. He's really interested in the sport and he really wants to get better at it. I think yes, but that core motivation is because he loves Chihaya. And there's a quote in the show, and I had to write it down because I think it really just describes in a sentence or like in a scene like exactly what he's about. So he says, I hate myself for being so sneaky, for doing whatever it takes to become better at Karuta before anyone else, for trying to go on a trip with Chihaya. So when I heard that line, I'm like, okay, well, that's basically him. He's in love with Chihaya, and he wants to play Karuta to become better than anyone else, so that he can play at the same level as Chihaya and just always be with her. And And I just think that, I'll let you speak. I'll give my next point after that. But I want to know what you think about what I just said.
About those, I think those are valid points. I like basically everything you said, and I like the way you're approaching. I think that's really interesting for Taichi. The way I view it, though, is just like you liked him more as a kid. You liked him more as a that cocky, arrogant type of individual.
Just as a more interesting personality.
It's a more interesting personality, but I think the reason that personality wasn't more prevalent in his later thing is because when he played Karuta when he was young, it made him a better person. He found the friendship with Chihara and for Aruta, and that changed his cocky, kind of dick, arrogant demeanor from it. So it's like the Taichi that we see is someone who really found a group of friends and a sports that he really enjoyed doing. That's what made him that type of, and that's what made him, even if you call him bland in a sense, because I think on the surface, that's what we're supposed to see him as. And that's what people call him. Everyone comments about how Taichi is this good looking dude, and then they can't really believe that he's actually really smart at things and stuff. But it seems like, but he's the character that we see a lot of inner voiceovers, I would say more so than a lot of characters. You actually see how his mind works and a peek behind the curtain more so than any other character, because I think there's a lot more going on inside of his head than there is almost any other character. I would imagine following completely Chihara's mindset inside would be kind of boring and stuff. But I think Taichi is a very complex individual inside, and how he works out his problems. That to me just make him interesting. And another point you made about
his motivation for playing Karuta is based on his love for Chihaya.
Yes. Okay, I don't disagree with that. And that is I would say it's a good 75% driving factor of his motivation himself. And Chihara is definitely the one that inspires him to keep playing and to keep trying to be the best. It's because that's the point of, as I mentioned kind of earlier, with Chihara's character, is that she's inspiring to people through her passion. They see her being passionate about the sport, and it makes them want to be passionate about the sport as well. And that's what Taichi is striving for because of Chihara, not just for his love, but just because that's the point of the show is them seeing her passion and then following their passions because of it.
Yeah, so, and I don't necessarily, here's another layer to what I was going to say is I don't necessarily dislike that his motivation is based off of his love for Chihaya. Again, I just think that the implementation of it was done poorly because, so what we have here is we have a classic love triangle anime, and we have a love connection between Taichi and Chihaya, but there's another one between Chihaya and Aruta, which is the other character we'll talk about later. But what makes those interesting is sort of like a conflict of like a will they, won't they, and there's really no will they, won't they between Chihaya and Taichi. There's moments, really little tiny moments where like Taichi's like, should I hold her hand? And Chihaya at one point, I think she looks at him like lovingly for grabbing her hand or something like that.
Yeah, they see each other. There's passion.
There's something there, but like I just think they could have done a lot more with that. And I understand, like I said, it's the first season to a long running manga series, but it doesn't seem compelling to me. Like if we saw more of those moments, I think it would have been great. And to be honestly, the love triangle I think is the most interesting aspect of the anime. And I want to talk more about that later. But for now, what I'll say is every time they bring in the kind of like the romance subplot of it, I think the anime just gets elevated to another level, especially when the next character is also in the episode. And then to your other point though of you saying that Taichi gets like kind of like the most inner monologue moments, and those make him interesting. I actually agree because I think there was a great scene where he's playing a match against Porky Nishida. And that's when we really get to see the inner workings of his mind, because that's when we really get to see his memorization of the cards really pay off, and his determination and his drive. And I think that was a really strong scene. And I think if they were consistent with that portrayal of his character throughout the anime, I think I would have liked Taichi a lot more. But as it stands now, he's kind of bland, and the love story between him and Chihaya isn't compelling because there's no push and pull there. It's mostly just a one note Taichi kind of lamenting at Chihaya never loving him back kind of thing, which is kind of boring.
That's okay, and I concede that point absolutely. That the love triangle isn't your normal love triangle. It really is no push and pull between her and, you'll see the show marketed as like a love triangle, but really is not. It is really one-sided. It's but that's what makes, to me, it interesting and different than anything I've seen before. Because normally, like a love triangle, I sometimes don't like those because how it is like a push and pull. Like, how do I choose between each character? I think that what they present is interesting because you have a character, you have Taichi who's in love with somebody who he knows for certain will never love him back the way that she loves somebody else. That she might forget about that other character more, like, every so often, but every time that he knows that if he's just brought into it, that if he's mentioned, that if he's involved in it, then she is always going to go to him instead of Taichi himself. And I just think that element of it is different than anything I've seen, which is why I like it.
To that point, I would say that would be more compelling if they implemented this differently, because like if Chihaya, or if I liked Taichi more as a character, then it would be kind of like a sad, I'd feel more emotion. Like I'd feel like, oh, Taichi, he's such a good guy. He does all these things for Chihaya, but Chihaya will never love him, that kind of thing. But I just don't feel that with Taichi. And I think honestly, it is kind of like partly to do with like his good looks and his like extreme talents and all that. Cause he is really good at karate. Like he's not the best at it, but he does have a talent for it, and he does work hard for it. But I just feel like there's not enough there for me to feel sympathetic towards him, and I think that's kind of the main thing is in this love story. There's not enough sympathy, but there is a compelling arc buried in Taichi, and I think if it was explored more, again, I think I would have liked it more. But there is this idea when he's a kid, Arata calls him a coward, and I think his arc is mostly about him reconciling with that and trying not to be a coward. And they really only explore this, I think, in one other moment in the show, wherein I think his coach or something, he's trying to get to like a certain rank, like a class A rank, and his coach was going to let him basically advance to that rank despite not meeting the requirements of the society. He technically can be that rank, but his society that he belongs to needs him to win like a tournament or something, which he hasn't done yet. And so the coach offers him, hey, I'll let you become this class A person, even though you don't technically do fit the requirements. But Taichi says, no, I don't want to do that. And he says that he's trying to become a person that doesn't run away. And I think that was a really compelling character moment. And I just wish that was explored a little bit more, because we don't see a lot of him his courage being tested. We don't see a lot of like his resolve being questioned or anything like that. He's usually on top of things. He's usually like, he's the guy. But I just think that would have been such a great character arc, as if we saw him evolve more in that direction.
Totally fair. That is an excellent point. I see that, and yeah, I do agree. I wish we would have seen more of that going forward. I'm excited. We've talked a lot about Taichi. So after calling Taichi the most boringest man on the planet, I'm very excited to hear your thoughts on the third element of the triangle and the other main character who's barely in this show.
Yes,
as Arata.
Tell me
your thoughts about Arata.
Okay, so first of all, every other character in this show becomes way more interesting whenever Arata's in a scene or in the episode. Whenever there's an internet,
let's talk about. Okay, I guess we got to describe his character just like a little bit.
Sure. Sorry, yeah. So Arata, he's a very quiet and reserved person, but he is a savant at karate and extremely passionate about it. He's the reason why Chihaya and Taichi play the sport, because as a kid, Arata was, your standard nerd, and he was bullied and stuff. And Chihaya stood up for him, and Arata, in exchange, showed her the game that he's most passionate about, which is competitive karate. And like I said, whenever he's in the scene and he's interacting with the other characters, the show gets elevated to another level. And I just think that the first 3 episodes were very strong because of the dynamic between the relationship of the 3. When you have only 2 of them, Taichi and Chihaya, it's just weak. But the Arata is just that third link that really just makes everything feel much better. And I think this is because of how they work off of each other. And there's this great scene and they really don't do this again in the series again, which is a shame, because there's this great scene when they're kids, when they play a team match. There's only one team Karata match really in this anime, but it's one of the most interesting things. And when they do that team match, Arata he really gets into his groove. He tells them the strategy. He tells them, you're going to do this, you're going to do that for this and that reason. The sport becomes very tactical to him, and the way he plays and the way he like brings himself, and it's just way more interesting than seeing any other character play the game. And again, the whole love triangle thing, that's when the tension starts, because there's this great scene so basically Arata plays as a kid, but then for some reason, we're not going to tell the reason why, he stops playing, and then he comes back to the sport. And when he comes back to the sport, it's very rewarding, because you learn about his reason for why he stopped. And I just think it's a super compelling character moment when we learn about, why he stopped and all that. But when he comes back to the sport and when he reunites with the other two characters, you have a lot of different things going on. You have Arata, you have Chihaya happy at seeing Arata, and Arata's happy at seeing Chihaya. But then Taichi's kind of like sulking because he knows that Chihaya loves Arata, essentially. Like Chihaya and Arata, they got a thing for each other, but Taichi's kind of off in the distance, and he's a third wheel kind of deal. And yeah, I feel like I just kind of rambled for a bit, but
no, you made absolutely perfect sense in the sense, because I 100% agree with you. Arata is not in this story a lot. They withhold any real meetings between the three main characters after establishing their great dynamic early on. And I think that's because, again, if this is a long-running manga, which it is, then, you have these sort of long gaps between they can actually all see each other and interact. And I would imagine, because it doesn't look like the show is going to get a third season, just because it's been so long between the second and the third one.
Really?
But the manga is still going. But I imagine it is going to eventually lead to another three-way match, like, with...
I freaking hope so, yeah.
Yeah, me too. But it's like, for a show, if like you go into it for a love triangle, like if you like animes like that, then this will be a different show for you. Hanging. Because it is. Yeah. Because Arata is barely in this story. He doesn't factor in a whole lot. But I like on one hand I don't like that because but one hand I do, because then he's kind of like this presence, right? He's kind of like this.
Yeah, he is.
Ghost,
there,
like
that's a good.
That he's like always there. That is like an underlying driving factor for both Taichi and for Chihaya. So I'd like that element of it, but it's like, but then I can't have it both ways, because it's like I like that he's not in the story, but I also wish he was in the story more. So it's
and I think that's a really good way to put it. Is he's a presence. Like when he's in the episode, whenever he was in the episodes, I just got excited. I was like, yes, Arta's gonna be in this one. Yeah. We're gonna see some interesting shit for once. Like,
we only see him for about 45 seconds. That's fine.
Yeah, no, honestly, yeah, because there are some scenes where he's just kind of like learning about what's happening with the other two characters, and those scenes I don't really care about. But when he's actually like interacting with Chihaya and Taichi is when I really, really like him. And I see what you're saying, but I am of the opinion that I would have loved him just staying around in the series. I understand that, like, because like I said, they laid this awesome foundation, and then they just kind of broke away from it. Mm-hmm. They laid this awesome 3-person dynamic, and then took one of the persons out, and then kind of made him like the motivation or the driving factor, which I think, it's kind of a way to prolong the story in a bit. It's kind of like they're fine. Like he's like the MacGuffin kind of deal. They will get to, like, he was the goal, and I just feel like that's such a shame. I feel like they just kept them around. The anime would just be 10 times better, and I probably would have been singing its praises instead of shitting on everyone. Because like I said, I think the other characters also become way more interesting when Arata isn't seen. Especially, I like the moments when Taichi and Arata talk, for example. Yeah. Because Taichi is a strong male lead in the show, and it's really cool to see him interact with another strong male lead. Yeah. Like when they talk as like equals, it's just so, it's fascinating to me, because they're both really good, and they both have a love for Chihaya, but they both still like respect each other, and their friendship kind of grows, and it's really satisfying to see that. In the first 3 episodes, you see that. Yeah. Like they're rivals, and in the next episode, Taichi's like really concerned for his health and all that, and it's like really cute. And I'm like, oh man, that's so cool. I just wish that they kept going in that direction.
Me too, and that's what's interesting, because I don't know if it's a stalling like it can either be seen as a stalling tactic or as, I guess, the point of the show itself, because it's no spoilers, and as we've kind of already mentioned, like these three main characters are kept apart in the first season. It's not too much of a spoiler to say in the second season that's also kind of the case, that follows suit. Even in like really extreme cases, there's moments where just like Aruta is trying to see his friends, but it just like forces stop him to in the second season, which I don't know if that's supposed to be this, if they're trying to keep them apart just because if the writing doesn't know what they'll really do if they're all three together, or if that they're trying to build them apart. They're trying to build their journey separately from one another, so that when they do finally meet, they come as like fully formed individuals, like with their own personal baggage and stuff before they ultimately interact more.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing about this anime is they could have made it a very tight story, but they didn't. And I think that's kind of what's really disappointing, is they just had so much potential packed, like sprinkled throughout the anime. I think there is a great story that you can just kind of just take those good bits and then tighten it all up, and then you have a really compelling anime.
Which is true, because I guess to pivot a little bit, because we talk a lot about these characters, and it pivots because Karuta is a very interesting game. Like, to me, I grew to really find the matches kind of interesting to play. Since and I think it's a fascinating sport. I think it's different than other sports we figured, like figure skating and ping pong, because there's a lot to it. I think there's more tension in these ones because there's a lot of buildup between each individual round, because you have to wait till they read the cards and you kind of get into both characters' heads before they're about to swipe right and stuff. Like in both ping pong and ice skating,
swipe right on Tinder.
Yeah, basically. For both ping pong and on ice, you watch a game and there's no really moments of pause to really like catch your breath, like what's going to happen, because you're watching that unfold. For Karuta is interesting to watch to me because the tension builds a lot, especially in moments when like a lot of dead cards are being read, like when which means there's a card being read in the match that isn't on your playing field, so you kind of have to wait. I just think those moments work really well for me and get me inspired to actually watch Karuta.
So I would not disagree, because I found the matches in this anime, again, they had so much potential. Like you said that there was a really great buildup. I never felt a buildup, and I think the reasons for it, well, there's several reasons for it. But mainly it's that in the Karuta matches, the buildup is sort of superficial because, and like you said, we get into the characters' heads, but really not that much. And really, we don't get into the characters' head that much because we generally don't have an interesting antagonist. For example, a lot of the matches, our characters are kind of going up against like faceless nobodies, and they're just somehow good at the game or they're bad at the game. It doesn't matter. And a lot of what happens is that the characters, the conflict becomes like an inner conflict, always with like the main character. Like the main character will kind of like do really bad, and then they'll think of like, oh man, I'm doing so bad, but I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna do my best. I'm gonna take a deep breath. Okay, suddenly I'm really good at the game now. And I just feel like that tension doesn't exist because it's one-sided, and it's fine. I'm cool with matches that are like that, but a lot of the times, if it's too much, I don't like it, because I in my sports animes, I prefer a dialogue. This is what I will say about the matches in Karuta. A lot of the matches are monologues, therefore a lot of the matches aren't very interesting for me to watch. There are some matches that are dialogues, i.e., we see the perspective and the mindset of both players, and we see kind of like their different strategies and tactics, and we see more of that towards the end than we do in the beginning. And I don't even think we get that until like halfway through the season, and up to that point, every Karuta match is essentially just Chihaya talking to herself and asking why she's so shitty at the game. And I just think that
you have to say grant that for the first season because that's your main character who we're supposed to follow. She's supposed to learn and question herself while she's playing the game. And maybe we don't have these well-developed kind of villains even so because there really isn't any villain on the show. All the antagonists, there's three that I can think of. There's other characters kind of like Pseudo. There's I guess to not go into spoiler territory, there are other characters that they kind of develop more once they've already played them once, but then they won't be developed this early on. You got to grow with these characters later on.
Yeah, I would say that they don't even develop the villains that much because, like you said, so Pseudo is he's a character from another team, and he's I guess they make fun of him because they call him S for sadist. Like he's kind of like this dude that plays mind games with people, and that's interesting. And when we see the match between Chihaya and Pseudo, it's interesting because we see the perspective from both sides. We see Pseudo's strategy going in. We see what's going on inside his head when he's dominating the game and when he's losing the game. And that's what I mean by a dialogue. And we just don't see that enough. And I don't care if it's just we only see these people for one match and they're gone, because towards the end, there are people that we only see for one match and then they're gone. Mm-hmm. Even if they're just throwaway characters, it just would have made the conflict and the resolution of that conflict so much more interesting if there was another character to bounce off of.
Okay.
And I just don't think I saw enough of that. And the other criticism I'll have of the matches is that the way that they're animated, I don't think is particularly entertaining because, and I think again, this is a lot of lost potential, but a lot of what you'll see the card to matches being is basically they'll read the card and then someone will swipe it really fast and you'll have a cut to the card being tossed out of the room, and then the person gets up, picks up the card, goes back down. We see the reaction, and that just happens over and over again. And I get it, that's the sport, But I just think that they could have made it so much more interesting because I don't know about a lot, but in some sports animes, they do these visual embellishments to the sport, and I think they could have really done with that in a sport that's very burst-like. It's mostly static, lots of sitting around, and then really short, intense waves of motion. And they do kind of this slow motion-y effect sometimes. But I think it would have been cool if they did kind of a visual thing, like in Ping Pong the animation.
Yeah.
When Skimoto had the robot thing. I feel if each character was characterized by a visual motif, it would have been so much more interesting. And they do that. They do that once with Arata. When Arata's playing, we see this water
he's
envelop
water.
him. He's he's underwater. He's ocean and he moves like water, and it's just so cool to see. And we also see Chihaya is enveloped in water because she's in awe of his playing style. And beyond that too, we see, like I said, whenever Arata's in the story, other characters become more interesting. When we see the water enveloping Arata, we see instead Taichi. He's submerged. He's way deep, and he's surrounded by inky blackness. He's way deep underwater because he's sad and stuff. And just those little visual motifs, they could have done so much with that. And they do it sometimes, but that's the most notable part that I've seen it. And if they just did that more, I would have loved this anime way more.
Yeah, I have no counterpoint to that because I 100% agree with you. There's moments of kind of them trying to do stuff interesting with the matches, as Chihara kind of learns the meaning of the poems more, then she kind of sees the poems in a different light and stuff.
Yes.
Which is cool. I think there's a moment where she learns it's about the Red Sea of the forest basically, and then so she sees that card in red, and when she hears the reader say it in that voice, she pictures red all around her and stuff, and in the tree. So there's moments of that which is pretty cool. That I do wish that they did more. I agree with you 100% on that issue. That's a lot of those matches could have done more with their visualization and animation of the matches.
And I think this is just my speculation. It probably has something to do with the budget or something like that, because one thing I also noticed is that the first 3 episodes have beautiful animation. There's a lot of bloom effects, and they spend a lot of time on the background imagery, the trees and the town that they live in as they're walking around. But then as the anime goes on, you can kind of notice there's sort of a decline in the sharpness of it. It still looks pretty, but a lot of the matches end up being in stale, boring karata rooms, and they could have done so much more with that. They could have made it more interesting. So well, and the
rooms, I do agree, but the rooms itself are hard because they do seem to try to be really accurate to with their cards representation. So they're supposed to be in dull rooms without any distractions or anything.
I know. It's a stylistic thing, and I know why they went with that, but I personally would have wanted the matches to be more visually entertaining. And the final criticism I'll have of it is that so they form a team in like the first half of this series, but the team to me never really feels like a team, and I think it's just because of the individual nature of Karata, because they don't really play any team matches. But what I love in a sports anime is when you kind of see the team develop as a group, as a unit, and you get to see the relationship between the team members develop with that as their skill abilities improve. But we don't really see that in this show because they only play individual matches. And so what ends up happening is that the team doesn't really seem like a team. It just seems more like a support group. Like, these are people that are there to cheer you on and to support you and to practice with.
See,
but when it comes to the actual games, nothing really happens. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, but I gotta say to that point, it's like that's intentional because there's an overarching theme in the second season where they're arguing about the merits of individual matches and team matches. Like in the second season, they argue about the fact that that team matches don't really mean anything, that it's not really true Karuto because it doesn't matter. But then, it's them fighting against it and them actually working as a team. So I think that's totally intentional to build them as it's kind of this individual nature, not have them be an actual growing team yet, because they do have a lot to learn as a team. They can't just automatically begin to start winning as a team, even though that's rewarding, like first off. But
yeah, I'm not even saying that they should automatically start winning as a team. I'm just saying like if they lost as a team, I think that'd be more interesting, of course. Like I'm just saying like I just feel like there is a element missing from this anime that I love seeing in other animes where there are teams.
Man, then I wish you would watch the second season.
Maybe I'll watch it. I don't know. Anyways, is there anything else you wanted to say about the Karata, or would you like to move on to the plot?
I guess we can move on to the plot.
Okay, so essentially, as a summary, the first half of the series, I think, is basically about the characters forming the team, learning to communicate with each other and work as a team, and Arata kind of slowly being reintroduced into the sport and the series. Yeah. And it kind of ends off with a match against the queen, who is the current queen, which is the youngest best female player currently.
Yeah, the way Karuto works is it's split up into like there's a master guy player who's called the master. And then there's the queen, and she's the top female player. So it's like those are what every character kind of strives to get. They want to be that top dog.
Yep, and then the second half of the series is basically the lead up to the Master and Queen qualifiers, which is basically the tournament where you get to see who gets to actually challenge the Queen and the Master at their title. And yeah, I think the general theme of the show is basically doing something because you love it. And sometimes that love comes in many different forms. For Chihaya, I think she loves it because it's fun, and she recalls a time when she played it with her friends, and that's very motivating for her because she wants to keep playing it so she can keep playing with her friends. And then with Taichi, I think he plays it because he loves Chihaya, and then Arata plays it because he learned the sport from his grandfather, and he plays it because he loves his grandfather and that kind of thing. So yeah, what do you think?
And then even I agree completely, because I just think there's many different sides to the things that you can love. You can love something, and then other people can love it for a different reason than you. Because all those characters that you just mentioned, but then also we have Desk, who loves kind of the more analytics and like logical side of studying it, and you have One, who loves the sport because she truly loves the poems around it.
Yeah, and so I wanna talk about Oe really quickly because she's my favorite character of the team. Yeah, like of the team that they form.
I like her.
She is great. Her love of the sport is from a completely different angle, but it's very interesting and compelling. She loves it from the sort of cultural and historical perspective, and she just loves the history from which these poems come from and the meanings behind them. And through her, we get to see a deeper meaning behind the poems the traditions from which they came from, and whenever she describes the poems, you get these great visuals of the meanings of the poem. And I think, she's just she's awesome.
She has the best, I would say, single season arc. I would say I like
there we
where
go.
she ends
there we
up.
go. Yeah. She has a motivation for loving the sport, and that motivation leads her to something unique.
Yeah, like the one that's like I never would have thought of, but it's just like when you see it,
it makes
like,
so much sense.
Oh yeah, of course.
Exactly.
That's what she should do. Yeah,
exactly. When you get to that moment, it just makes so much sense. Yeah, like you're completely right. She has the best. I think one of the best arcs in this season. Mm-hmm. The other one being Arata, and everyone else stays the same.
Yeah. I just like, so when I watch sports anime, it's like there's usually all these animes approach the idea of sports differently, and like what it means to kind of, play a sport and play a game like that. And what I like about this one is because there's a line that they repeat a few times. It's just like, you should play a stronger opponent so you can get better. There's no, which I like, because you always, in a sport, when you enter it, you should always play the best. You should always strive to play the best, because that's how you will learn. And I think that's an underlying theme throughout like this entire series about how they want to play. Chihara always wants to play the best that there is, like no matter what, and she wants all the team members to like not take the easy way out and just like to always
she
play
won't
against
go easy
stronger
on her
players.
Teammates, essentially.
Yeah, because and that's like a thing, because it's like, and that's what a sport should be. That's, you should have that drive to win, because it's like they mentioned about like, that feeling you get when you're just losing horribly and you just kind of, you want to take one card, that's all you want. It's like all of it like that. Then that feeling is this show describes it as, that feeling is like one of the best feelings in the world, because then you're motivated, then you're passionate, and then you have a fire for the sport. And so I like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's a very interesting philosophy. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know if it would work on everyone. And I don't necessarily know if, like, even like from a growth perspective, if that would necessarily improve a player. It probably would, but I think, like, for example, if you're playing like ping pong against someone, or like tennis or something like that, and you're playing like a top all-star athlete at it, and they just keep getting you on these serves, and you can't even see the ball whizzing past you, and you can't even hit it. Like, how can you practice something that you can't even get the basics of because someone's just so far ahead of you? Well, and I guess, I don't know, karate might be a different sport or something, but I just don't know. I just feel like maybe a different perspective in the anime would have been nice or something.
Okay. Yeah, well, I think you can learn from that. I mean, I really do, because like I played ping pong against people who are just utterly destroy me and everything, and I like playing against them in that sense, because it's I have to actively try to focus and to think, and it's like I learn from that. So I think there is something there. I mean, I wouldn't. Yeah, there's merit like to it. I feel like if I had to do that in real life, I would fucking hate my life. but
I think there's definitely merit to it, but I'm skeptical of it being kind of like the end all be all, and the way that they approached that it seemed to be that was the only way that they were going to train, is you're only going to go up against the best players, and I don't think that's particularly effective. But I don't know. What do I know? I don't know anything about sports.
Yeah, we know nothing. Okay. So yeah, I think that about. Is there anything else you want to mention about it?
No, I think we should get to our conclusions about it, and we'll end on a positive note with your conclusion. So we'll start with mine. I give this like I said before, I hate giving half points, but I keep doing it now because I'm kind of ambivalent. But I give this a 1.5 out of 5. And like I said, 1 star means I don't like it and I'll never see it again. 2 star means I don't like it and I'll never see it again. So there's one thing that's consistent, is that I don't really want to see this again. And it's not that I don't like it, but it's not that I like it either. It's just very meh. And again, this stems from the fact that there was so much potential that they didn't deliver. And that kind of frustrates me. And it just ended up not being a very entertaining or interesting anime for me to watch. So what about you, Kobe?
I give it, if we rank it out of 5, you have your 5 things?
Yeah, my 5 things.
Don't like
it, I'll never see it again. Like it, but I'll still never see it again. I like it, and I will watch it if a friend invites me over to watch it with them. I like it, and I will willingly watch this on my own to rewatch it. And then 5 stars is I have to watch this every single year. which is a very imperfect rating system. But, you know.
Yeah. I would say
I just pulled that out of my ass.
I'm going to give it like a 3.5 because I have to grade it in a system of, will I show it to, one of my other friends who like anime?
Okay, yeah.
Would I recommend this show? And I would say, yes, I would. I would warn them that, to me, it does. It drags kind of in the middle. I think 25 episodes is a bit too long. There is some lost potential, but there is a lot of good there. There's individual little character quirks that kind of develop into your liking of the characters, even though they start off really one note and think a certain way. It's like I actually grew to like almost all of the main characters a lot, and I was like, I really am interested in following them and more on their adventures. I think Karuta is a very interesting sport in a way that I never would have thought the memorization card game would have been interesting. And I do think the love triangle is different love triangle than you will see in an anime. And then again, I have an undying love for Taichi. So,
man. Okay. That's fine. So, I think we did it. Yeah. That was pretty solid. I feel pretty good about that. I guess that's it. If you want to follow us, we are the Nerd Blaze. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter, and we are now at thenerdblaze.com. Is it with
no? It's just Nerd Blaze. Just nerdblaze.com.
Okay, so nerdblaze.com. That's going to be where we're going to be putting our podcast, and also we're going to be putting our podcasts and potentially more videos on our YouTube channel. But yeah, that's it. Anything else you want to say?
No, thank you very much. It's like we are still trying to figure out basically our formats for these podcasts, but I think this one worked well, and I enjoyed talking with you. It's fun when you have differing perspectives on things.
It definitely is, and I hope you guys enjoyed that. That is all from us. Goodbye.
Bye.
See ya.